let's link up with Krista on the FYX. She's a wellness coach with a focus on mental well-being and physical strength.
So to kick it off, whoever wants to go first, I want to know who you are. So who's Jillian, who's Jaimie, and why should we care about what you two have to say?
Who wants to go first?
Take it away, Jillian.
All right, Jillian, you got it, girl. You're up.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having us on. Excited to be here. So how we got started, well, I guess I'll start with how I got started.
Perfect.
Was in my late teens. I was becoming pre-diabetic. I would literally like pass out from blood sugar irregulation, and I just found myself in this super unhealthy place. I realized like I'm way too young to want to live the rest of my life this way. So I actually went through an organization called the National Personal Training Institute to get a training certificate, just to kind of self-teach and learn like what to do in the gym, because I played sports growing up, but they never really taught us that as women, like on the female side of things through sports in high school and all that. So I did it to self-teach, never with the intent to get into like the health and wellness industry. But then the results that I was able to create for myself, overcoming like pre-diabetes, and I was over 200 pounds at the time as well. So it was also like this weight loss and like health journey, right? So yeah, I found myself in that place, not wanting to live the rest of my life that way. A lot of my friends, family started to see sort of like the progress that I was able to make on my own. They started asking me for help, and then it just evolved into like, okay, maybe I can actually do this as a career. So I personally train people and nutrition coach for over 12 years now. And then there's a lot to be said about that journey. There's a big time gap there. Maybe we'll dive into some of that stuff as we go today, but led us to shut down, right? So pre-COVID times, I was in the gym full time, and it kind of forced me to pivot to online only at that time if I was going to continue inside of this industry. So that time I had been working on Jaimie. She was one of my nutrition coaching clients that I did have online or like in the virtual space outside of the brick and mortar. And I had kind of gotten started. She was seeing me get started with trying to pursue doing everything online. So one day she says to me like, hey, do you want to start a podcast? And I was like, yeah, sure. But what are we going to talk about? And so we just got talking about, you know, everything that we care to share with the world or try to like inspire, I would say specifically women, but really everybody, generally speaking, to like just build and grow and be aligned with yourself, and self-love and self-care and all that stuff kind of comes first, and like finding your tribe and all that kind of good stuff. So we just aligned in like how we wanted to help women, right? It's like, we don't want to just be a nutrition coach. We don't want to just be a fitness coach. Like, we want these women to have not only like a physical transformation, but like emotional, mental, like complete level up, right? They're like completely different women coming outside of the program than they were coming in. So that's kind of how we got started. And I guess that like very briefly encompasses what we're about. But yeah, does that answer all of the questions? I was trying to remember.
Yeah. And I think that's a perfect segue for Jaimie. You know, tell us, how'd you get connected with Jillian, and what prompted you to go from client to now wanting to talk about this stuff that you're obviously, it's so important to you. You've seen that it works in your own life.
Yeah, Jillian's amazing, first of all. So I actually got started in the fitness space. I myself was overweight for like all through childhood, all through my teenage years. And I felt like I never played sports. I was never that girl. I'm 5'8", 5'9". So I've always been like a tall, big girl, right? So I found CrossFit I started working out in 2010, and then I found CrossFit, and I discovered CrossFit shortly after that. And it was the first time where I wasn't like on a treadmill trying to lose weight on like an elliptical and going through the motions and whatever. So I found this community of what CrossFit is. And I actually found that like, okay, being tall and having thick thighs and having all the things is very beneficial in CrossFit. Like, let me
Yeah.
pick up some weight, right? So yeah, I just started, I started doing that. And then in 2015, I got a job at my gym, and I started just working in the office. And then we started incorporating women's 6-week challenges. And I was like, I want to be a part of this. At this point, I had lost the weight. I had got strong. I felt empowered, and I wanted women to feel the exact same way. I wanted women to know what it feels like to pick up a barbell and feel strong, because it will change everything. Right. So I did that for, oh gosh, till 2020, doing these 6-week challenges. Every 6 weeks, I was like meeting new women and meeting them, just basic, like women, moms, trying to just feel good about themselves again, get back into it. And then in 2020, I wanted to take my fitness to the next level, because I know like basic nutrition, but I ain't at no level that Jillian's at, right? So I had been following Jillian for years on social media, and I reached out to her and I was like, let me be like you. Like, this is a girl that's 5'8", 5'9". She's got like, I want your body. Can you
She's
show me how
strong
to
as
do that?
hell. When she
Yeah,
posts her videos of her lifting, they pump me up for sure.
exactly. So yeah, I just reached out to her, and it was I worked with her for about a year. And then, so that, like, I have the fitness side of me, but then I'm also a sex coach as well. So I teach women just how to love themselves, we talk about low libido, all the things. So when I started getting closer with Jillian. She found out that I have this like sex coaching business, and I help women just with that part of their life. And I've always envisioned a program with fitness, nutrition, and women's sexual health, because those are 3 things that are like, it encompasses the entire female. And I never knew how to do that. I never knew how to be all 3. I never knew how to fill all 3 roles. I can't put all my eggs into sex coaching and still be a good fitness coach, So when I found Jillian, like, literally our paths and our visions were the same. And I thought, this is amazing. I can do the, sexual health part of this program, and she's got the fitness and nutrition. So it just kind of evolved from there.
I love it. She's a triple threat. And, you brought up so many great points about it's very hard to be this jack of all trades and go deep enough on topics that deserve their own attention, and yet at the same time are really interconnected. Like, it's impossible to separate them. But you also want to be able to bring the best knowledge and the best information to people. And I think that there's a lot to be said for working in a team and collaborating, and how much better you can become as an individual and then as a practitioner by linking yourself up with like-minded people, which is even how this conversation and this meeting came to be for this episode. So I'm super excited about all of that. And before we get into more of the details, because I have a bunch of questions just off of what both of you said, I want to talk about coffee, since that is one of my favorite things to drink. And I ask all of my guests on the show what they like to sip on as a part of their morning routine. So if we want to, I don't know, Jillian, if you want to go first for this question too, but are you a coffee drinker? And if so, what's your go-to coffee of choice?
For sure. So I am bougie.
I like it.
And so let me just preface, like, we could go down a rabbit trail with this topic, but I can't get away with having coffee every single day, or it starts to give me a lot of GI issues. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail right now, but I would say probably 3 to 5 times per week, depending on like how that's feeling for me. So my bougie coffee order is a nitro cold brew with sugar-free vanilla and cinnamon almond milk foam, and they hate me every time I order.
Oh, that sounds really good.
It's so good. Oh my God.
What about
I did
you,
not know
Jaimie?
Get that. I guess I'm bougie as well, because my order is pretty long too. So my original drink of choice is Starbucks green tea latte with coconut milk, but I was drinking that every single day, and the macros were too high for every single day. So I got bougie, and now I do a iced green tea latte with almond milk. I get 1 scoop of matcha with 3 pumps of sugar-free vanilla, and if I'm feeling feisty, I add a shot to it.
Nice. You know what? I have a long Starbucks order too, to the point where like if I can't do mobile ordering, I don't even want to order it because I'm like, can I have this and this and this and this and this and make sure it has extra ice? So I'm with you guys there. And I appreciate it because typically every person I have on the show, they're like, oh, I just do black coffee. So I'm happy that we're spicing it up for this one for today. So cool. So let's start. I think it would be really fun if you guys are willing to do this and can kind of go back and forth on this from like the coach versus client perspective. I think it'd be kind of fun for Jaimie first, for you to walk through. You mentioned that you felt like you had the fitness thing down. You had found this passion of wanting to pursue sex coaching, and in the back of your mind, something was missing with the nutrition piece. You talked about that was what led you to find Jillian and actually work with her. But I really appreciate that you highlighted that everyone tends to have a really big focus on just the fitness. And I know that of all the people that I work with that listen to this show, I come from the group fitness world, from boutique fitness, and most of my clients, they don't necessarily have a problem getting to the gym, but they're not seeing results. And they're saying it all the time. They're like, I'm working out this much. I'm not seeing the results. I'm doing this. I'm not seeing the results. It's usually because they are not doing what they should be doing when it comes to nutrition, especially specific to the style of workout that they're choosing to do. So I imagine that's what happened in your own life. And I'd love for you to kind of like walk us through some of the big things that you learned through working with Jillian, also as a way to kind of highlight what her coaching is like and what are like the really big topics and pieces of information that you now 100% live by and are kind of like, I wish I had figured this out sooner.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, there are so many. Okay, so the biggest
You want to give us like your top three?
Okay, top three. I had so many gut issues. I am somebody that just thought that bloating is normal, wake up every day with bloating, no problems. Like, I honestly thought it was a normal part of life. People talk about it like it's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Had conversations with Jillian, and she's like, yeah, no, bloating is not normal. We need to go ahead and reverse that. So gut health is a big one. We cut out foods that were possibly affecting my GI, like for instance, coffee. I no longer drink like that acidic coffee, because I didn't realize it was messing with my stomach, and my GI system was totally shot. So cheese was another one. I didn't realize cheese was like so bad for you, or it was bad for me. Obviously, everybody's different. But so I'd say GI, like her big focus is working on the GI and getting that under control before you can really do anything else. The second thing that I learned from her, which I never thought about, was stress on the body. So if you're stressed, like, okay, going into the gym and putting stress on your body is the same type of stress as running your kids around and being stressed out at work or being stressed out with your family, right? It piles on top of us. And if we have all this stress in our life, our cortisol levels are sky high, and it's going to affect all these other body systems. And this could be a reason as to why your body isn't changing. So I learned that overtraining and under eating is not the right approach, which I think society and culture have kind of ingrained in our heads, that we need to overtrain, push as hard as we can, like 4 to 5 times a week, and eat less. That's how you lose weight. It might work for a second, but it's not going to last in the long run.
I remember you just continuing to be surprised, and I'm like, no, we're going to increase again. You're like, what? Really?
Yeah. I started off by carbs. She's like, all right, we're going to do like 250 carbs. I think it's where I started. And I was like, what? 250 carbs? Like, excuse me? I mean, I trusted her and it worked, but it's crazy. What was the other thing I was going to say? I'd say those are the two biggest ones, the stress and the gut health. Oh yeah, I remember she would say, like, I was doing CrossFit at the time, and I like high intensity. I like pushing hard. I like challenging myself. Do I always want to do that? No, but that's how I am. So she was like, all right, we need to decrease the stress. So maybe don't go as hard in your CrossFit workout today or tomorrow. And I'm like, no problem. You said it. I sure won't. So
I'd
yeah, I'd say
love
those are the
to
big
know
ones.
And Jillian, if you kind of want to start this part first, and then Jaimie giving me the perspective from that client piece too, how have you found, Jillian, that as a coach, you've been able to establish that trust for Jaimie to be like, okay, if this is what you're encouraging me to do, I'm going to try this method? Because I'm asking this question for twofold. Anybody who's a coach out there listening to this and you struggle with trying to encourage your clients to do something that is completely opposite of what it's been drilled into them to do, right? And more so for the listener who is like, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I've been told. So I'm going to keep trying this. And they fight you on that. It is so hard as a coach to say to somebody, oh, we're actually going to increase your calories for X amount of time. And I might not even know how long that's going to be. We have to see what happens as we go. It's a very unsettling place for somebody to walk through and just blindly trust you through that journey. So for you as a coach, what does that look like when you're having those one-on-one conversations with your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question because honestly, it's not an easy thing, right? But I found that the only way to get that, like you said, like just sort of that blind trust right from the jump is like inside of the conversation before I even start giving nutritional recommendations, I'm letting them know like, hey, this is usually what the process looks like when people come in. It's usually opposite of what people think they're going to get started doing. And as long as you know that and you have the awareness around that and you're okay with that, like, I know I can get you the result that you're looking to achieve, but you have to, like, these are the prerequisites for you to be able to earn the ability to achieve that result. And then I just follow that up with education. And that's something that, like, in coming together, we've spent a lot of time on building out, a course where people kind of go through all these prerequisite, like, learnings on their own relative to, like, this is why we're doing things the way we're doing, and very few and far between can step into the coaching setting and then just go right into, active pursuit of body fat loss, which is what most people want, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just starting that conversation right from the beginning, right from the start, and just letting them know, like, hey, I'm not your quick fix coach. And if that's what you're looking for, like, I can send you somewhere, but I'm not going to be that person. So
yeah, setting those expectations right from the get. And that's even something I've learned personally as I've evolved with my coaching is it's very hard for me to be willing to take on somebody who's like, I want to do this within 90 days. And this is exactly what I expect to see within 90 days. And I'm like, I don't have enough information based on your dieting history to confidently tell you that I can 100% support you in executing that plan. And I've just found that setting the expectation of being patient, it can really wind up being such a factor in somebody's success, ultimately because of their ability to sustain these things long term, instead of throwing everything but the kitchen sink at them in terms of change this, change that. I'm really big into kind of like stair stepping and walking before we can run and all those sorts of analogies. So Jaimie, to piggyback off of that, I'd love to know, when you first got started with Jillian, were you in a place where you were like, I really want to see results right now? And if so, what changed for you in terms of being able to find that patience and lean into the process?
Yeah. So obviously when you hire a nutrition coach, you feel like, okay, this is the person that's going to help me lose weight, lose body fat. So I remember having a conversation with her, and she explained to me how maintenance work, how bringing your body to homeostasis and like get your body running like a machine first will change everything. So nobody had ever said anything like that to me. It made complete sense, where I can't put you on a fat loss diet if your body's all out of whack and your hormones are all out of whack and your body's not working properly to begin with. So let's start with that, step one. And let's get your body up and functioning regularly. Let's get your hormones regulated. Let's bring your cortisol levels down. Let's get your body functioning like a machine. And then we can go into this active pursuit of fat loss. So when she explained that to me, it made so much sense. And like I said, no one had ever said that to me before. So I was on board after she sold me on that. Then she told me how many carbs I had to eat. And I was like, whoa, I mean, I trusted her, but yeah.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the definition of a lot versus a little food. This is something that always comes up for me with my clients. And I caution them to really question in the beginning when I set people up, and for the first week or so, I'm just telling them, take a food log, track your food. I'm not going to give you a lot of direction. I just want to see what your typical behavior is. And I'm sure you guys do something very similar to get a baseline of what is this person normally eating. And I think it's really difficult to kind of compete with some of the psychology that's associated with like your definition of a lot, in air quotes, of food versus a little food, because it's so subjective, right? And we kind of have like different tools and tricks and ways that we can reframe that. But I'm curious where you guys think that comes from. Like, do you think that's something that you just perceive as a little kid? Is it something that as a female, it's just there's so much conversation around eating less to try to lose weight? I'd love to dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think I'll go first, and then Jaimie, whatever you want to add. It's like the way we've been conditioned all of our lives growing up, really, you know, in societal expectations of women in general. You know, you look at like there's been a huge evolution in the recent like year, 2 years maybe, where even like the models inside of like your favorite like Lululemon, for example, right? Like they just added some plus size clothing and like things of that nature. Like previously, all of our lives growing up, we were conditioned to like try to shrink ourselves as much as possible. Like if you weren't a size 0 to 4, like you're ugly. Like that's what we were led to believe. And then on top of that is just also like coming from an athletic background, you're always told that you're going to perform better if you're smaller. Obviously, there's some exception to that rule inside of like weightlifting and things of that nature. I would agree there's some validity to that statement, but the problem was, you know, there was always like you mentioned with the client that wants to come in and achieve whatever amount of fat loss in 90 days. And it's like, well, first of all, that's going to wreck your body and then you're not going to be able to perform well. And second, like, I'm just not going to be the coach for that. But yeah, so I think it stems from society, and we really came out of that era of like fat-free everything, low calorie everything, like only eat paleo, only, you know, it's like the next new thing that everybody's doing. So.
Yeah, I just to piggyback off of Jillian, I know from my own experience, that is something that always affected me because growing up, like I said, I am tall, I'm a large girl. And I was always like, I was in a size 16 growing up. And even when I had, toned my body, I was still a size 10. I was still, and like she said, you're not perfect. You don't have the perfect body unless you're a size 0 to 4. So I was never, even when I was healthy, in my own head, I wasn't, because I wasn't a size 6 or a size 4. So yeah, that always messed with my head. And then I always felt there was always a new fad diet. I remember when the South Beach diet was huge. I tried that. I did the paleo. I did all these like low carb diets. And I just thought that's how you lose weight. You have to be on a diet. And it's absolutely society. What?
Yeah, I remember like you saying that just triggered a memory. Like in college, I legit went on the lean cuisine diet. I ate 3 lean cuisines a day and I got down to like a size 4. Mind you, I'm similar to Jaimie where like I'm 5'7", not petite, like even toned, like ripped Jillian stays between like a size 6 to 8. And that's considered like, you know, compared to like the way we've been conditioned, like that used to be thought of as like almost plus size, you know what I mean? Like, and the insanity of that in itself, like you're speaking directly to somebody's like genetics. It's like, you're not born to be this big, like it's okay.
Right. And, you know, going off of old diets and memories of things that we tried, there was one that I did for my, prom when I was like 17 or 18, like my senior year of high school. And it's a book and it was called the 17-Day Diet. I don't know if you guys have heard of this one or remember it at all. It has a lot of elements that are like similar to South Beach. And it was kind of like a conglomeration of a bunch of different things. And so if I looked back at it now, I should probably do this with all the knowledge that I've acquired since. I should go back through it and even try to calculate how many calories I was eating on a daily basis, because
600.
Most of it was like, it was all about like making sure that I had lemon water first thing in the morning, like hot water with lemon when I woke up and right before bed to curb my appetite. And then a lot of like Greek yogurt, and all of my snacks were mostly like celery and carrots and things that I like to eat. And it worked, but I was miserable by the 17th day. Like I couldn't keep it up at all. And you know, it's like you guys said, we've just been conditioned to believe this certain thing. And it's like, I've even now since gone through another transition of all of the changes that we've had in the past year with like the stress from business changing and then personal life and, dealing with such a different environment. I really put my own health on the back burner. And to Jaimie's point about even when you were healthy at size 10 or whatever size it was, and you couldn't recognize that because you were constantly chasing some other goal. I look at photos of myself when I thought that I was my healthiest in the last 4 years. And now I'm like, I wish I recognized that like I should have been focusing on being stronger versus always trying to chase being lean. So for both of you guys, how does that show up for you on a day-to-day basis in the decisions that you're making? Like fast forwarding to today, or even if you could go back and tell 16-year-old Jillian or 20-year-old Jaimie or whatever, when you were trying all these different things, what would you want her to know?
It's funny you asked this question because I had just made a post about, I can't remember if it was earlier this week or towards the end of last week, like a letter to 21-year-old Jillian.
Perfect.
But yeah, like piggybacking off of what you said is if you just focus on like what you're capable of rather than trying to shrink yourself, that like even at my absolute leanest, that was when I first started to transition to that mindset. It was like, you're always chasing this weight or this body fat percentage. And inside of that, you start to become impatient. And it's like only drastic measures will, like, we've been conditioned to believe, right? Like you have to overhaul everything you currently do. And it's like, I can't tell you how much freedom there is in like letting go of that notion of having to only eat 1,200 calories, 1,600, 1,800, whatever that looks like to an individual. Like being in a nutritional deficit, a lot of people are still in that place at 1,800 calories. Like, and that's mind blowing to most people. And more recently, I kind of put myself through reverse protocol, trying to restore homeostatic balance and feel good again, because I know firsthand, like, that's a whole other rabbit trail, but your period is your report card as a female relative to your health, and mine was getting out of whack. So I'm like, okay, I need to focus on like rebuilding. So I did that for a while, and then coming out of that went into just a 300 calorie deficit, cycling on and off of that, and like it's continuing to, I'm continuing to get leaner at a slower pace, but I'm like, I'll sustain this forever. And if I want to go back and compete, it'll be easy to, if I want to like drop a quick 5, like you have to achieve that like metabolic flexibility before you earn, again, going back to like, you have to earn the ability to do that with your metabolism. But yeah, so how it shows up is just like, think of all the moments where you're so overconsumed by like, how many calories is in this food? Or like you're at a barbecue, like, I can't eat that. Or like, you go to a wedding and you're, I'm going to pass on the cake. Like how many moments that you give things up that it's like, that you end up binging on later because of all the restriction, and just being free of that. I think, your level of living, you level up. Like you enjoy, you get to stay in the moment, not feel like you're missing out all the time.
Yeah, you use the word freedom. I'd say that was the biggest thing. If you let go of all that, if I could tell my 16-year-old self, like, let go. It does not matter. You're perfect the way that you are. I've learned that now, but I just feel so much more free. And the me today is way more focused on my health and getting my GI like healthy and my hormones healthy. I mean, obviously, if I have like a vacation coming up or if I have something big coming up, that's when I focus on like, okay, let's go into this body fat loss. Let's look at more physique. But then I come out of that pretty quickly out, after that's over, and let's go back to the health, because that's really what it's all about. Being healthy and not having to restrict myself. That's all I focused on. Like that was my life. My body image was on my mind 24/7. I didn't think I was worthy. I thought people were looking at me. I didn't think I could have anything. So now that I'm more focused on just being healthy and feeling good, the real me, I feel like, is showing up. It's the confidence. And I think that's the message that we're trying to get across to women, that it's not about that. So.
Yeah, I mean, in the 30 minutes that we've been talking so far, we have barely mentioned the scale, right? Like, we're talking about other markers of your health. You know, Jillian just touched on your period and how valuable of a piece of information that is in terms of your biology. And Jaimie talking about, I'm sure this is something that is now coming up for you, having taken the time to dive a little more into the nutrition, like understanding libido, sex drive, all of those being as indicators of being healthy versus just focusing in on your body image. So I'd like to kind of use this part of the conversation to talk about your Jaimie, the sex coaching piece of everything, and when you guys decided to bring this all together. So what got you into that? If it was before you working with Jillian, kind of walk us through the timeline on that.
Sure. So I actually started sex coaching in 2013. So
wow, you've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, I was in
Cool.
nursing school, graduated from nursing school. I started with a company called Pure Romance. I don't know but it's like an in-home party company for women. So I started with Pure Romance, and I literally just started doing it because I liked the products. And I thought, well, this would be fun. I was like shy. Everyone, when I told people I was selling Pure Romance, they're like, how are you going to do that? Like, you can't even like say the word sex. How are you going to do it? I'm like, I don't know. I'll figure it out. So I did. And I didn't realize how much education that Pure Romance actually gave to their consultants. So I was very intrigued, and I started reading more on how I can do these parties. So my parties were very like education. I would stand up in front of these women and I would teach them about their bodies. I would teach them about their sex drive, their libido, like all the things. And after the party, I found that women were like thanking me or opening up to me, and I was being a voice for them to at least have somebody to talk to about them, why they don't have this sex drive. And as I learned more, this is right after nursing school, mind you, I'm thinking to myself, why don't they teach this in school? Like, why didn't they teach us like serious anatomy, or teach us about libido, or teach us about our pelvic floor? Like, they don't teach you anything like that in nursing school. I had to learn this all on my own. So, I mean, long story short, I graduated from nursing school, but I didn't pursue the nursing because I fell into this field of fitness and helping women. I knew I got into nursing because I wanted to help people. Going into fitness and helping women feel good about themselves with weight loss, and then also in this avenue of just teaching women how to love themselves and helping their sex life and helping their relationships, right? Because that's a huge part of our lives. I did that. So yeah, I am, what is this, like 7-8 years later?
Yeah.
My sex coaching business has definitely evolved. I call myself a sex and love architect now, because why not? It's just a fun name.
I like that. That's
fun. Yeah. So I still do Pure Romance. I still love the products, but I'm more focused on like this sexual wellness aspect of my business. And then, so how Jillian and I came together, I think we just had this conversation, and she was like, yeah, I feel like what I'm doing, I'm missing that part. Like, I want that part. I mean, Jillian can probably explain it better. And I was like, well, yeah, let's like do a podcast and let's like talk about all the things. And then we still have yet to do the podcast, but
all right. You guys are,
yeah.
Then talk to me about, so just for clarity, like, did the concept around love yourself naked and that being the theme of your coaching come out of the two of you linking up together? Or Jillian, was that mission of yours something that you were already working on and maybe you just kind of named it that once Jaimie came into the fold?
So I came up with, like, and with Jason's help, like, of course, shout out to Jason Phillips, because he helps us with everything. But I came up with his help with break to build coaching, and it being like break, believe, build, become. And that it doesn't matter if it's relative to nutrition, fitness, sexual wellness. Like, we really need to break, whatever isn't serving us relative to our desires inside of like each of those like containers per se. And then you can instill like the belief, right? Like creating new belief system around those things so that you can see the change. And then comes the building portion, where it's actual steps and strategy to get people to finally become in this future version of self. And part of that, like Jaimie said, I felt like I was missing was the sexual wellness side of things. That's something that like I felt like we wanted to she came to me with the Love Yourself Naked name, and I was like, okay, let's call it the Love Yourself Naked Project, because then it sort of encompasses this idea of like, it's people don't want to sign up for a process, right? But like we at the same time had the understanding that you can't like overnight reverse like where you are today relative to where you want to be, if that makes sense. And then just aside, like separate note from that, like it was putting this all in one place. Like if I wanted help with any of these three things previously, I always found I had to outreach to like this person, that person, therapist, coach, whatever. And so just bringing that all in one, I thought was super valuable. And that there's so much Jaimie covers inside of her sexual wellness avenue that's like, we've all experienced some level of trauma in our life, whether it's just how we've been conditioned through society, potentially like physically abused, sexually abused, mentally abused, whatever that might look like. And so she is able to deep dive in some of those topics and like really help people through some like real life stuff, you know? So statistically speaking, well, last time I checked, it was like 1 in 4 women experience that. And that's like of women that have reported those things, right?
Yeah.
So like disclaimer, we're not like, PhD in therapy or whatever, but like, we've been able to help people turn around in that area, working on things together. So it's been really cool to see that unfold.
And did you guys ever expect that, going back to your initial story, Jillian, of getting into this for the sake of self-education, that it would evolve into everything you just shared in terms of helping someone in that capacity?
No, it's really wild. Like I said, like I actually went to school originally, pre-med. I also wanted to help people. Quickly realized I was going to have a hard time in that environment because it's like not much happy, right? Like it's amazing like the doctors are able to help save lives and all of that, but like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I want more than that, like something more fulfilling than that. So then I switched to business minor in psychology. And like, I thought like I would help people in some way, like, I don't know, mental wellness or something, but yeah, no intent. So it's crazy to think back on all of that. And I'm sure Jaimie feels the same, like having become a nurse to like step away and do this. Like, I think it's cool. I think it's amazing.
I agree.
Do you guys, so from here, let's kind of walk through if somebody wanted to work with you and go through the Love Yourself Naked project, what are kind of like, give me some of the big rocks of what different topics you'll tackle with them.
Ooh.
You want to go? You want me to
go? We tackle all the things. You want to talk about what you do, and then I can talk about what I do?
Why don't you guys kind of show us walk us through like how you have it organized too, in terms of whose subject matter focus is, how you lead those conversations, and what somebody could get from that experience. Because I always find it interesting to learn how people collaborate within a team that way.
Yeah, for sure. So we, like I mentioned earlier, we kind of came up with like 12 courses of like everything Jaimie's learned through time. She has her side of things, and then everything like at least at a surface level, right? Because even doing like a segment on something, like you're really just starting to scratch the surface. So we try to do as much like broad spectrum topic as we could, but starting off like with the basics, because that's the biggest thing. People always want to get started and jump right into like this new sexy plan, but like they don't realize that just doing the basics is actually going to get them, moving in the right direction at least. So coming in, we assign them essentially like the courses, right? And it walks them through like step by step how to get started with us. So kind of similar to what you mentioned earlier, there is some type of tracking involved. We have to have some understanding of calorie balance. And with that, the result that we will take and deliver is first we'll sort of like optimize, what's happening with hormones so that we can regain that homeostatic balance and achieve the ability, like give our bodies the ability to create the fat loss that they desire. And then once they're in this place, we can like kind of accelerate that process if that's their desire. I always like disclaimer, I can't promise your timeline, but I can promise your result. So that's what I work through with people on that side of things is, so essentially like optimize hormones, make sure based on all like, I call them like your check engine lights, right? Like your biofeedback, like what is your body telling us? Is it ready to go into active pursuit of fat loss? And then just stay in tune with that through the process. So we have 12 modules on that. Outside of that, you know, any nutritional questions or help that they have or would want to get from me, I make myself available using WhatsApp. I know that's like super common. And then we do weekly group calls with all the girls where we get on and like Jaimie and I tag team that and kind of like deep dive different topics. Sometimes we get a lot of similar questions from the girls. So we might take, you know, 1 week to cover calorie balance and like, where are your numbers coming from? How, like, Jillian, how the hell are you assigning me these numbers? This is way too high, right? So like, that's one example. Sometimes it's specific to sexual wellness. Sometimes like this week, Jaimie gave them a Google Doc or a, what do you call it?
Google form?
Yeah, Google form to fill out just for like random Q&A. So we'll have like a mini teaching followed by that. So it's really just to like serve whatever their needs are. And then in addition to that, we do bi-monthly meetups where it's actually like coming together. You know, it's cool to watch because a lot of these women have similar issues in their lives, and like just knowing that they're not alone in that, like I feel like some of that blind trust that continues to show up comes from those meetups because it's like they're having vulnerable conversations with us, you know, and being able to like help them with some strategy coming out of that is pretty cool. So those look different each time too. And then, yeah, Jaimie, what do you want to say about your side of things?
Yeah, so I'm very like sexual wellness, sexuality, and mindset, self-love, all the things. That's what you'll basically find inside of my modules. So, and I follow this break to build, like Jillian said before, this 4-phase model. So in phase 1, we really break down why women feel the way that they do. So whether they're feeling like they don't feel they've lost their sexuality, maybe a little bit, maybe their libido is low, like let's look at why, and let's break down how society and culture has ingrained these ideas into our head. So for example, we go through life with getting these little subliminal messages about our sexuality, whether it be you know, if you dress a certain way, you are called a whore in school, right? So all these little subliminal messages kind of dumb down our sexuality. Maybe these media images, again, that we see about our body image, there's medical messages out there that say, like, I remember being in school in health class, and we had like 2 days of sex ed, and it was 1 day of showing us graphic images of STDs and like, have sex and you'll get pregnant. You don't want to do that at the age of 18. So like, what did I learn from that experience was, okay, sex is bad. Don't do it.
Yeah,
like,
be scared.
You know what I mean? Yeah, be scared. So all these little things like dumb down our sexuality, dumb down like how we talk about sex. That's why it's so taboo. So we break all that down. Why are you feeling the way that you're feeling? And then I just kind of build you back up. So I have a course on like emotions and accepting your emotions. If you feel sad, you deserve to feel sad. If your emotion and everything that you're feeling is valid. So let's work from there. I have a course where I just talk about education. Like, let me educate you on your pelvic floor. Let me talk about why your pelvic floor is so important. Let me tell you why you should be doing Kegels or why you shouldn't be doing Kegels, because there's a difference. I have a course on, we talk about menopause, we talk about hormones, we talk about periods, like we talk about all the things, and it's just so much fun. And as they go through these modules, the questions come up, and that's very where myself and Jillian come in, where, okay, now let's deep dive and talk about you personally and see where we can, you know, not necessarily fix, but work on what's going on.
One of my favorite additions to like one of the things Jaimie mentioned is, so maybe Krista, what's the most random thing or funny thing you remember from sex ed? And like for me, it was like I learned how to put a condom on a banana. Like,
yeah, we totally did that. Yeah.
Like, I mean, whatever, I get it, like prevention of pregnancy, right? But going back to what Jaimie said is like, you're going to hell if you get pregnant. Like
it's so crazy. And like how, no wonder our brains as women are jumbled. No wonder we might suffer from some low sex drive, is because we don't really have good sex education out there.
Yeah. And I even think, just to go back to this like health class environment too, it's such a missed opportunity for even talking about nutrition, right? Because if we bring it all back to what we were discussing initially around like body image and this idea that like we should eat less, and we could go into a whole conversation about like the food pyramid that we learned and how backwards that is. But it's just like, I feel like there's such a missed opportunity for young women and boys and men too, like in school, that these conversations could be had in a better way, so that you're not finding yourself in this situation where by age 20, 22, 25, 30, 40, I don't care how old you are, that you're in a place where you've tried a million different diets, you're not happy with how you look, and then that's transitioning into everything else. And it's just like, you already don't feel comfortable in the first place. And you weren't taught how to feel comfortable about those things, to, you know, steal your words of things being seen taboo. Right.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So
Nobody
Jillian,
wants to talk about it.
yeah, exactly. And, you know, Jillian, I'd love to know from your perspective of now bringing Jaimie into the fold and adding more of these topics as a part of like the fundamentals of the work that you're doing with your clients. What kind of changes, two-part question, what kind of changes have you seen in terms of your coaching, whether that's your approach to coaching, or the results that women are seeing? And I don't know if you've had any clients that have been with you prior to introducing this coursework who have now kind of like done both, but I'd love that perspective on how it's made you a different coach. And then as a result, what kinds of changes are you seeing with the women that you work with, because you're bringing all of this together?
Yeah, so I think like I don't think it's anyone's fault, but you know, when I was primarily personal training, like nutrition coaching on the side, to like over rotate on the fitness aspect. And then I'm like, well, this nutrition really interests me. Like, I understand how much it influences what's happening with the body and, you know, the physiology. So then you start to over rotate on that. And I think like it's just a hugely missed opportunity, right? Because you don't realize like how much like your hormonal status and everything impacts the functionality of your neurotransmitter signaling. So like, and then how food impacts that. So like you mentioned like way earlier in the episode, like it's all interconnected. And like, again, it's just a huge missed opportunity if we're not addressing all three. So I know for me, approaching certain conversations that like Jaimie stepped in and like she has no problem talking or speaking to, for me traditionally was like uncomfortable, right? Like I didn't want to ask people these types of questions. I felt like I was maybe like overstepping boundaries or whatever. And I'll preface by stating that we don't ever force people into these conversations. Like we want people to be comfortable and feel confident and good about what they're doing with us. So we would never force anybody into an uncomfortable situation. But so that's what the beauty is about having the courses. They go do those on their own, then they get to come to us with what questions they have. And so it kind of like plants the seed so we can start to step into that conversation. And, you know, we've seen women in the program go from like pretty much losing all levels of intimacy with their husband or partner to like now they have a flourishing relationship again, and like they're having a lot of fun with it, if you know what I mean. So, so
that's what we like to hear. I signify that as success, right?
Yeah, like everybody wants to feel good, you know, everybody wants to feel sexy, everybody wants to feel like desired and wanted, and like it's this whole piece that again is just like taboo to talk about in our society. And I do feel like they all feed off of each other. So all aspects are necessary to create like a, you know, very well-rounded, like relative to like overall healthy individual. But like, yeah, it's allowed us to step into those conversations. So it's really cool. It's really cool to watch it unfold.
And what do you guys think are some of, you know, Jaimie, you mentioned this in the big things that you've learned from Jillian, and you talked about digestion and GI and just assuming that certain, I don't know, like symptoms, right, that you experience on a daily basis, they're just normal. So you wouldn't have even categorized them as symptoms before. When it comes to women's wellness and sex health and hormones, what do you guys think are some of the things that a lot of women just kind of accept as like, well, oh no, that's just normal. And they don't necessarily recognize that that's not the way they should be living?
So there's a few when it comes to sexual health. I would say like I've talked to several women who are having painful sex and just going with the flow, and that's not okay. That's not normal. There's several different things that can be done to help with that. So that's a big one. I would say low libido. A lot of women, I think they're just, maybe they've been in a relationship for a long time and they just think, I'm just kind of going with the flow here, and it just is just how it is when it gets to be this point. And that's also not the fact. I mean, we could talk about foreplay and go into foreplay, and there's different types of foreplay too. And everyone's trying to compare themselves to, like, you know, a relationship when you just met and it's like spicy and good, when that doesn't last forever. And there's things that we can talk about in there. So I would say those are the two big ones that I see as far as, like, yeah, painful sex and then libido.
And Jillian, what do you think with that from more of like maybe the nutrition standpoint, or things that need to change through nutrition?
For sure. So I think it goes back to like identifying if there is a true like GI issue that needs to be addressed, and then like what part of the GI needs to be addressed, right? Because people think like they think of GI issues and they just think of like stomach cramping or upset stomach. They don't realize that it's this whole system that works together, and that at different like checkpoints inside of that system, there's different things that can be implemented to address, you know, if that's specifically where the problem area is. Or if it's not, then we might be implementing the inappropriate protocol. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's definitely some parallels to like what works well for overall gut health. Some people need elimination diet, some people don't, but I can like pretty much look at an individual and just based on like their skin, their complexion, like under their eyes, be able to identify like if they're having significant gut issues or not. And it shows like people that aren't aware of it probably have no idea, like, you know, like to their naked eye or whatever. But after doing this for so long, like you can instantly identify that in people. And then you start asking the questions and they're like, oh no, like I have a regular bathroom movement every day, you know, and then like you get into coaching with them and they're like, well, actually I go like maybe once every 3 days, or like when I do go, it's diarrhea every time. Like, again, taboo things that people don't want to talk about. And then the other thing I would say is just like really terrible periods or inconsistent periods, or like, you know, like I have this one girl that I'm working with currently, and she'll go sometimes 3 months without a period. It used to be like, it was over a year. So progress, right? But like, that's not normal. Like you should have a period, and the whole concept of like, that's a whole other rabbit trail, like a pill bleed versus an actual like period bleed. Again, not here to like tell anybody what to do with their lives, or not a doctor, but you shouldn't have painful periods, and they shouldn't like take you down the entire week that you're menstruating. Like that's not how your life should be ever. So
yeah. And I think just even having conversations like this and us trying to set the precedent that it's okay to talk about all of this, and you should feel comfortable talking to somebody about this stuff. And if you don't feel like you have anyone in your corner that you can, whether it's, you know, your girlfriends, family member, whatever, you got 3 people right here just from having this conversation. And I want to use that as a segue into what we're working on together and using this episode as an announcement for, because we're very excited for a little upcoming 3-day challenge that we're doing that I think we agreed on the official name. It's a how-to challenge, but specifically targeted towards summer. So we asked everybody, what are some of your big challenges during summertime? And the biggest ones that came up were usually travel related or alcohol. You got your parties, day drinking, all that kind of stuff. So we're coming together to do a little 3-day event, and it's going to be drink in parentheses or eat your way lean for the summer. And we've got all different topics that we're going to explore inside of that. So I figured before we wrap all this up and move into our lightning round, maybe we can talk a little bit about like each of the 3 days and really high level what we're going to kind of dive into. Like one of them being, your bathing suit and feeling comfortable at the pool. I think that's very relevant to everything we've talked about so far. So I don't know if one of you guys wants to take one of them.
Sure. Yeah. So day 1, we'll dive into basically people think you have to give away all of your extra free time in order to start working towards your desired result, like your body goal. And with that being said, they think that their body goal is like completely unattainable and out of reach. Like, first of all, wrong. Second, wrong. So we're going to highlight just a lot of, we're going to focus around like 3 main topics and like just different life hacks where you can start implementing immediately. And this should begin to produce some result for you. Of course, like once you get to a certain place, you're going to need more specificity around what you're doing. That goes for anything in life. But yeah, some like quick how-tos on how to start making the changes, implement the changes without it like overruling your already hectic, busy, summer fun schedule. So that'll be day 1. Jaimie, you wanted popcorn day 2?
Day 2, I don't know about you, but I get super like maybe a little bit anxiety when I have to go shopping for a bathing suit, like no matter what. Been like that my whole life. So we are on day 2 going to talk about how to pick your a bathing suit for your body, like your body figure, your body style. So that'll be a fun one. I'm really looking forward to day 2. I think that'll kind of lower the anxiety a little bit because you'll know exactly what to search for.
Yeah, I'm excited for that too, because even I was thinking about that when we were brainstorming on this the other day. And I had a moment last weekend with it being 4th of July, and I really haven't just worn a bathing suit yet for the summer. And I'm not at the leanest that I want to be. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to wear like a bathing suit that's more of a one piece. Like I'll feel more comfortable in this. And honestly, you guys, I actually tried on like 3 one pieces and I felt so much better in my bikini when I like went through the whole process of trying on a bunch of different things. And it just made me feel so much better and also helped me recognize that I have this bias towards assuming, oh, I'm not at my leanest, so that's not what I'm going to be the most comfortable in. And I think we'll do a little bit more of a dive into those types of rules and kind of beliefs that we hold on to and how we can break some of those things down, which is awesome. And then for the last day, I'll jump in with that one. We're going to get right into the heart of how do you manage these parties and barbecues and opportunities with lots of different food and lots of different alcohol and feel like you can still have fun. And to go back to one of our initial points of this conversation, live with that freedom that Jaimie was talking about and not feeling so restricted. And I think even Jillian, something you just shared about busy lifestyle, I think we can all agree that we really want people to have the takeaway that summer isn't the time to just completely ditch any goals that you have. Because if you can't get started right now, I'm going to be that harsh person here who's going to say, you're just not going to get started. Like we got to throw away those excuses, right?
Totally.
I literally, like, you're not harsh because my post today, I was like, in 90 days, option A, I'll be turning my dreams into goals and making progress or something like that. And then option B was like, still contemplating when's a good time to get started with clown emoji next to it. So.
Yeah. Right? No, but seriously, it's like, we got to say something. I did a post about this a couple weeks ago and it was like me holding ice cream. And it pains me when people have this mindset that it's too complicated to start right now. And this comes up often too when I'm working with people who, if they travel for work, I know that hasn't been as common necessarily in the past year, but even in the last couple of months, people have started traveling again. And they always have this tendency to want to wait to start coaching. And I would challenge anybody out there who's listening to this to say, when you're busiest, this is the best time to lean into this because you are getting that built-in accountability that you're probably lacking in order to get you to your goals. So hopefully this 3-day challenge, it's a free challenge that we invite everybody listening to this to jump into, might be a good little segue for you to do that. If you're not comfortable, if you're not ready to make that leap, what we're all hoping is to just equip you guys with the knowledge that you can then take that step forward to, as Jillian pointed out, get the next level of specificity to be able to up-level your entire life and be the badass female that we know you are. And we just want to pull out of all of you guys.
Yeah. And to your point, just like one more little piggyback there is like, if you pull out the calendar, we pretty much go from like summer season to like barbecue, like wedding, grad party, like insert all the things, right? To like Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, right? So like, you have this very small window that maybe doesn't have like, there's probably some birthdays or anniversaries or something in there. So again, like Krista said, like there is no good time. There's no perfect time. So like if you're going to say you'll get started later, like you're only lying to yourself.
Yeah.
True.
Sorry.
I appreciate all the truth bombs, guys. So let's wrap it up with a fun little lightning round. Just whatever pops into my head is what I'm going to throw out there. So I think we'll keep it to like women's health, self-care, all that good stuff. So first, what is your guys' favorite self-care activity?
I like sitting in my hot tub, but I also like going to get my nails done. I'd say those are my two big
definitely
ones.
mine too. What about you,
Yeah.
Jillian?
I think like honestly, my investment in coaching, like I look at that as self-care more than anything else, because without that, like I know I'll work, but I'm not going to work at the level that I will if I know I'm reporting to somebody. So I feel like I know myself, and that's how I take care of myself is by like, I always have like 2, 3, sometimes 4 coaches, depending on like if I'm trying to compete in something physically or not. But that, and then of course, like I love the mani-pedi, like getting my hair done. You know, those are my staples, I guess I would say, for actual like activity.
I love all of those. What do you guys think is, if you could take one, I asked this to another nutrition coach that I also was connected to through NCI. If there was like one thing that you could just completely get rid of from the fitness industry, like this belief or like a type of diet or something that if you could just snap your fingers and change it tomorrow and it just not be a thing anymore, what would it be?
Is it rude if I say Jillian Michaels?
You're being honest. It's say what you want to say.
She just comes up with the most ridiculous things sometimes, and I just have an aversion because of like her time spent on The Biggest Loser, and really that's where the bad taste in my mouth comes from for her. I guess that's like, it is rude, I shouldn't name drop like that, so I apologize if she happens to listen to this, but we all know that drastic type of weight loss without sustainability built into the process is only setting people up for failure and or like overreaching when they come off of that diet, ending up larger than they were to begin with. And like, these are people that really needed like real help. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that bothers me. So that's my answer. Sorry. Negative Nancy.
I asked the negative question. So what do you got, Jaimie?
I would say eating less is not the answer. I think that's the biggest thing that I see, and that no, you're allowed to eat more. You're allowed to eat over 1,000 calories. Don't stop with the belief that you should be eating less in order to lose weight.
And I think with both of your responses, what comes with that is like, there's not enough of a highlight on the sustainability piece, right? In terms of like, let's check in with people who found what works for them 3 years ago. And is it still working, right? Those are the people that I think we have a responsibility to highlight more and bring to the forefront, to just really show that that piece of the process needs to be like the ultimate check-in point, if that makes sense. I think that's
totally. And I think another one would be stop stepping on the scale. Focus more on how you're feeling. Like, do you feel fatigued during the day? Do you feel good? Does your stomach feel good? Is there no bloatings? Focus more on your health and not so much the scale.
That's like the exact approach that we took with one of our girls. We're going to have her in and do a talk like this inside of our Facebook group, our private community. But she did lose 25 pounds in about 3 months, but like we increased her calories throughout that time. And of course, like not everybody is going to step in and have that type of response to increase in their calorie balance. But she was one of those lucky people. And like that being said, that will level off. Our goal is to help make sure that like she doesn't hit a plateau, right? Like we know that type of weight loss is not sustainable. Like it's not going to keep coming off that way, but it's amazing when it can happen if it's done in a sustainable way.
Mm-hmm. And I think that also draws in the point that there's not necessarily enough conversation around understanding that maintenance is just as hard as fat loss.
It really is.
And because you have to practice it, right? You have to know how to do it. So many of the women that I'm working with recently, like I've either been working with them for a while or they're coming to me with a more advanced knowledge of nutrition. And we are able to jump into a little bit more of an advanced protocol in terms of like our approach with calorie cycling or whatever different method you want to choose. Honestly, that doesn't really matter. It's finding what works for them. And I just like, it's exciting to see that they have put in the discipline and the work to earn the right to learn how to do that the right way. I think you even used that same expression earlier, Jillian, when we were talking about going into that fat loss phase. And that's something I totally align with. And I know that's why we always jive so well with going back and forth on our social media posts and all that stuff. I just love the message that you guys are spreading.
For sure. Yeah, we love yours too. I forget what I was gonna say about that. Oh, like obviously somebody stepping into like your dieting history, your training age, all of those things are super relevant, right? Like you said, if you get somebody that's kind of been around and gaining this understanding and learning this sustainable process and how to build that into their lifestyle, like you can begin to implement those advanced protocols, but they're probably still not going to yield that type of drastic weight loss because of the person's training age and dieting history and all of that. There's nothing wrong with that. Like you shouldn't be able to like lose 25 pounds in 3 months for the rest of your life. Like, you know, so that's also very relevant when people see something and they're like, well, I'm doing this. Why isn't it happening? Why isn't the same thing happening for me? That's a topic that needs to be addressed too.
Yeah, I think we should, you know, put that one in our back pocket for another podcast episode, because I feel like we could have a great conversation on that specifically. That comes up for me with a lot of the people that I work with literally all the time, especially when they're in the group fitness environment and the comparison is literally right next to you. And it's always an opportunity to say to the person like, hey, you only saw that person for 1 hour today. We don't know what all the other stuff is that's going on in their life, how they're handling certain things, what their stress level is, what their job is like compared to yours, let alone their dieting history and all of that too.
Right. Yeah. 1000%. I'm down for that.
What is your guys's, as CrossFitters, what is your guys's favorite workout movement? Like whether that's, it doesn't have to be a signature CrossFit lift, but if you want it to be.
That's hard for me because like that's what I love about CrossFit is
I feel like you're very versatile too, even when what I see you post.
Yeah, so I would say like I really love working on the gymnastics because I'm not somebody that you would look at on the street and think like, oh, she could rip off some muscle ups or she could just kick up and walk on her hands. And like definitely I think that's pretty cool that I earned my ability to do that and like kind of been able to hang on to it. But I do, that being said, like I love the barbell so much. The barbell is my therapy.
Me too.
I would agree with that. I'm big on the powerlifting moves. I'm all about like power but I like the clean as well. So anything with the barbell.
What do you guys think is the biggest learning lesson you've had from CrossFit now that it's been a part of your lives for several years?
For me, it's just like focusing on pacing, right? So going back to like sustainability inside of a workout shows up the same way sustainability inside of building a business or inside of building an appropriate nutrition plan. It's this mindset, right? Like I was always this person growing up, like I tried just about every sport and would quit if I wasn't one of the best by the end of the first season because it just pissed me off. I was like, I need to be good at this or I'm done with it, right? So that was the biggest thing for me as a CrossFitter. Like it helped me rid myself of that mentality. Don't get me wrong, I still have those moments where I'm like, I just want to say F it. But yeah, it's that really like it was a huge switch for me because you can't go into every workout and sprint, like you're not going to last, right? You're just going to fall apart. So I think, like I said, it spills over into everything else that I do. Of course, everything's for time. So like,
yeah,
even driving, you know, that's what I got.
I would say the biggest thing for me is it taught me how much my body is capable of doing. Because like I said, I was never the girl that was like into sports and I could never do all that when I was younger. So that's also why I love doing like CrossFit type competitions, because it puts you in this, it really makes you realize how much your body is capable of. And that to me is just astounding and amazing. So it makes me love my body more. And like what Jillian said, I think mindset too is, I also like pushing myself. I love seeing how much my body can do, and it carries over into other parts of my life. My self-confidence went up way, like a lot after I started doing CrossFit.
Well, I love all of that. I'm inspired by both of you guys from this conversation, from everything I see you doing on social media regularly. So happy to have had the time to just sit down and focus on this conversation for well over an hour. That's something I love about podcasting. And when you guys start your podcast, I think you'll grow an appreciation for so it's very rare that we're able to just focus on one thing for a good hour straight with no other distractions and get so much out of it. So if you guys got value from this conversation, we would love to have you join us in our challenge, which is coming up, and I will link all of the details for it down in the show notes. Before we do that, I do want you guys to drop all of your social media so we can know exactly where to find you. And again, that'll be linked too. But if you have questions for any of us in terms of how you can get signed up, how you can get started, all those details will be there and we can answer any of those questions directly. Just reach out to us. So Jillian, give us your shameless plug in terms of where we can connect with you on Instagram and all that stuff. And then Jaimie will have you do the same.
So it's my first name, Jillian, Lee, Leigh, it's spelled funny, _nutrition. That's my Instagram handle. If you want to find me on Facebook, it's Jillian Lee Smith. I'm going with the full name status. And then our private Facebook group is Diet Secrets for Women. Obviously, we're not huge advocates of just the dieting mentality, but that's kind of we get you in under the belief that you think that's what you need, and then we actually give you what you truly need inside of that group. So.
And I am Jaimie Brewis on Facebook. So Jaimie is spelled with 2 I's. Everyone gets it wrong. Jaimie, last name Brewis, Brewis. On Instagram, I am Jaimie Joann _. So you got to remember those 2 I's in the Jaimie.
I know. I've had to double check anytime I email or look you up too, because I'm like, wait, I think there's an extra I. But I have an appreciation for name spelling since people usually spell my name wrong. I got the K, sometimes it's a CH, the I have a Y. So I can resonate with you on that. But ladies, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much. First of many great conversations that we're going to be having. For everybody who listened today, again, jump into the show notes, grab all the details for signing up for this challenge on your how-to for drinking and eating your way lean through the rest of the summer. We know that you guys can get some really great takeaways from it. We're also going to have a few cool prizes up for grabs. So be sure to look at our Instagram pages for more details on all of that stuff. This has been another awesome episode of The Fix. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And from wherever you're listening, have a wonderful rest of your day.